From the southernmost point of Dorne to the lands of always winter, and what is west of Westeros and the shadows in the east, and to all the weddings in the realms. This is Casterly Talk. I'm Ken Napzok, and we are looking at episode 5, We Light the Way, directed by Claire Kilner, the writer, Charmaine de Gratte. We're going to talk about her, some of her experiences that she brought to this. I'm not going to do this alone, of course. I can't do this alone. There's so much. Join me tonight, as always, is Alden Diaz and Andres Cabrera, representing the Phoenix Suns. Alden representing Sir Brienne of Tarth, and I am representing the Night's Watch because there were so many brutal politics and legacy questions that I was like, I'm just going to take the black and get out of here. You all fun. Peace. I'm out.
It's a good plan. It's a good plan. I was going to attend a wedding, and then I remembered that's a terrible idea.
Terrible idea. And yeah, we'll get to all that there, including Ryan Condal in the inside the episode going, we wanted to live up to the legacy of weddings in Game of Thrones. We'll do that here. Before we dive in deep, so happy to have Alden and Andres here as well, but we are going to have a little quick summary here. I love kind of trying to write these up because it helps me focus on what actually might have been in the episode. I can get it wrong too. Death, duty, legacy, the question of who you will be remembered as hangs over the realm. King Viserys I's failing health has him contemplating all these big questions as he sets in motion a plan to wed his heir Rhaenyra to Laenor Velrayon and hopefully secure his line, his family in the Targaryen dynasty. You have to say it dynasty, not dynasty. But everyone else is trying to answer the question of who they will be, and perhaps none more than Alicent Hightower, who, for the first time, steps out before everyone as not just a queen, but to quote one of my favorites, Margaery Tyrell, the queen. Tensions are brewing, passions are boiling over, and that means it's a perfect time for a Game of Thrones wedding. Gentlemen, big moments, big reveals, big themes, a lot to get to, but let's talk about overall thoughts. Andres, where are you at with episode 5, We Light the Way?
Wow, I mean, it's tradition to have a messy wedding in Westeros, and this definitely lived up to it. My thing is like, it was the whole episode kind of fit the theme of chaos, and I felt like the wedding was chaotic. Everything was chaotic. Like, it was just pure chaos. And obviously it's all about the dominoes that are falling up in order to set up what's to come in the episodes to come. Because I'm pretty sure there's going to be a major time jump in the next few episodes.
Yeah, I think we're looking at possibly even 10 years in the next episode. We'll get to that here. This is also a swan song for many performers playing the younger versions of these characters. Emily Carey and Millie Alcock at the center of that. We'll talk about that as well. Alden, you're applauding them as you should. Wonderful performers. It truly is going to be hard to say goodbye, but we're going to be open to what is coming down the pipeline. But Alden, your overall thoughts on episode 5, We Light the Way?
Horrified. Absolutely horrified in the best way. I said it to you via text. I said it to my mother who watches House of the Dragon. I said, like, this is horror thriller. And we've seen a little bit of the psychological terror that they put these characters throughout. This show started in a darker place than Game of Thrones started, as it should have. But this was chaos, like you said, Andres, cacophony. They've done a great job of throughout the show showing us what we need, and maybe not even what the characters know, like the sexcapades and the scandal that we've just gotten through. We know some definitive answers the characters don't. Here we got cut out just as much as they did. The lack of clarity is shocking in the best way. Claire Kilner's directing is unreal. I feel differently terrified than I did after the Red Wedding, and not at all satisfied as I did after the Purple Wedding. But this is a genius episode. I loved it.
Yeah, brutal, intense, and you're right. We've been talking about this and tracking it all the way through 5 episodes in. This is, as I said early on, a more somber show. Doesn't mean there aren't moments of a little comedy. There was one great moment in the chaos of it all. Andres, I think that's a great word to describe a lot of the things going on here. The chaos of it all. King Viserys trying to cut that chicken by not paying attention, but just looking around. It was one of my favorite moments. Love that. Good. Yeah. And for me, the overall thing of We Light the Way, we should note those are the words of House Hightower. So this is very much an Alicent episode. And for me, it was a statement I've personally been ready for from Alicent, a character. I love Rhaenyra. I love Millie Alcock's interpretation of Rhaenyra. But I really have been looking at Alicent, even going into the series, of what is she going to do, what steps she's going to take. And this episode asks that question of what do you want to be? What do you want to do? What is your legacy? Who are you going to be? We're going to dive into that. I think she answered that there. And wanted to give this note. The credited writer, of course, it's a room full of wonderful producers and writers. Sarah Hess, Orange is the New Black showrunner, had something to do not only with this first season, but this episode specifically. But Charmaine de Gratte, I loved this episode. And I was looking up at her. She's done a lot of wonderful things, including The 100. But she attended Vassar College, upstate New York there, and she spent her summers working as a congressional intern in Washington, D.C. And I saw that note and went, yeah, that tracks for this episode. The politics, and not just the politicking, which is different than the politics and what politics mean. Politics often mean how we decide and come together to take care of the people. It was all through this episode. It made a lot of sense. It's a little bit of her background. How do you guys feel about that, Andres?
Yeah, I mean, this is all about political advantage and political gain, and how House Velaryon is finally satisfied with what they're going to get. And yet it's thrown off course with not just the interest between Laenor and Rhaenyra, but also just outside factors when it comes to Sir Criston Cole and obviously Alicent to come. So I feel like that's a major part of it, but also Daemon playing his games on the side and still kind of playing 4D chess when everyone else is playing checkers. I still feel like that's a big thing that's going to come, because Daemon never stops playing. Like, homie, just take a break. Just sit on the bench for like 5 minutes. But he doesn't.
You're at a wedding. Enjoy it. I love that Andres playing 4D chess while everyone's playing checkers is amazing. We're going to talk about, and Alden, I know you've been kind of, I don't want to say Team Daemon. That might be putting words in your mouth, but you like what Matt Smith has been putting down into the show here. But this starts off with a brutal move from Daemon. Where are you at with the Rogue Prince?
It's fascinating, right? Because there's a not a theme, there's a motif with this character that has been all but said until finally his now late lady wife finally says it. Daemon Targaryen is the rogue prince that cannot actually do the deed, be that politically, in terms of his own satisfaction and sexually. You know, not to take it to that explicit place here as we're having this podcast, but all of his sexual encounters in this show so far, none of them have ever gone all the way, not even with Mysaria. That's an intentional thing that they've showed us throughout. He can't actually do the deed that he initiated with Rhaenyra. And then we have his actual wife here saying, you could never finish, or you can't ever finish, or whatever the wording is. The double entendre, of course, being all of your tasks, but also them being these childless parents, no heirs. And that's great for him, as we will find out later on. But yeah, I mean, to see this guy just be like walking insecurity and the way that they place him. The Daemon Red Keep entrances have become a staple of this show, as he never walks with the crowd. And then, you know, to tie in with Alicent, they've trained us that way. So we get Daemon walking in and we're like, there's our X factor. And then they're like, nope, here's one more. And it's just a great little beat.
Every time Daemon enters, I just hear Jim Ross going, that's Daemon Targaryen's music.
My God.
My God, the run in. No, well said. And yeah, look, we're not just making cheeky jokes. It isn't, it's very purposeful that in the sex scenes we've seen with him, he cannot finish what he's trying to start, and it weighs on him. It gets to him. This Ray Royce, rest in peace. Brutal scene there. We can talk a little more detail there, but even going to the Stepstones, right? That was the big thing about him finishing maybe finally what he started, and that one particular instance, and now emerging. I think like Andres is saying, just kind of always playing, always trying to finish what he starts here. It's a big challenge for him.
And tie that in with the that congressional aid stuff, that political background, that like that's, you could feel the Washington DC and aren't they supposed to greet us? All right, I guess we'll walk all the way. And then like all of those little moves that are just pure passive aggression. Even Otto leaving, like, hey, I gotta go, but you better wreck shop while I'm gone. Like, it's powerful.
Yeah, I want to dive into that here in a second, but going back to the we get to see up there was the Runestones, Ray Royce, and I looked at, I listened to the inside, watched the inside the episode thing. It's fun to get some notes and just kind of see where the creators are coming from. I try to bring my own thoughts into the theme discussion here, but I was I was interested in what they were talking about here, because Rhea Royce does say, "What will you do now?" She says that to Daemon. That's a big theme over all this episode. Everyone's kind of answering this question: what will you do now? So that's the opening scene here. But Andres, let's start with you here. What do you think of Matt Smith and how he played this scene? The creator's kind of saying, we don't necessarily know. First of all, it's one sentence in Fire and Blood. We decided to extrapolate that into this scene. We don't know necessarily what he was trying to do when he got there. What did you take it, and how'd you like Matt Smith's portrayal here?
It's interesting because there was a moment, obviously, in episode 3 where he spent the entire half of the episode not saying a word. And this entire scene, he did the same thing. He's done that twice now, where he doesn't say anything and he communicates everything with his emotion and his face, obviously, with his acting. So this is another moment of Daemon basically going dragon mode. I don't know, beast mode, dragon mode, and just completely just committing to what he wants and what he needs to do in order to get what he wants, which is obviously more power and more leverage in order to, rise up in his name. So I felt like that was so important and so key. And it's also something that teases what we're going to get with Daemon in the future. Because if you've read Fire and Blood, there's always that little idea of like, did Daemon do this? Like, is Daemon behind everything? Like, there is that little thing that's put in your head that's never really confirmed, but always kind of questioned as far as Daemon trying to set up dominoes and push him down.
I love that. And you're not even sharing the details, but there's a little bit of that. It was me, James, the author of all your pain kind of vibe going on here. Yeah. And I love what Andre said there, Alden, of even if you know the text of Fire and Blood, they are playing with he goes, we say in our story here that he kills her, but does he go there to do that? Does she push him that? Which is not saying that she deserved this or anything. Yeah, that's not the comment I'm making, but she says those words to him. You can't even finish. And that hits him. And he does this horrible, horrible thing. How did you like Matt Smith's portrayal here? And what do you think about what Andres is suggesting, which is we have these margins that they're playing with, and even then we still don't really know the answers here.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, Andres. I mean, there were conversations after this previous episode about the brothel and everything of, did he rip her hat off just to, like, what did he actually set in motion? Was Mysaria on the take? Did he know Mysaria was an information broker and purposely get caught? Like, what level of, like, Blofeld level antics to throw the Bond in there, Ken? Like, what is this guy doing? Is it 4D chess? And I think Matt Smith's brilliant. I mean, I was a mark for Matt Smith before. I watched The Crown for this man, like stuff I was not prepared to watch. Like he's a brilliant actor, and to see him lean into what I've been saying, little James Bond, but also a little bit of that Kylo Ren energy of, you people keep deciding what I am, and I'm just living up to your expectations. Yeah. If you had made me hand, if you had done X number of things, maybe I wouldn't be this way. I was going to walk away and maybe let someone find you, and maybe you would have been, paralyzed. Who knows what her fate would have been. He kind of tests her arm a little bit. Like, am I going to break this all the way out? You're kind of injured. Leaves. And then it's the prodding, and he cannot have his insecurities prodded like that, which is why he likes people like the Lady Laena later on that see him by all the accolades, like the Dragon Rider, the Knight, the Rogue Prince. Like he can only buy into expectations. You give him praise, he'll become that guy. You give him an insult, he'll become that guy too.
Good point. Good point. More questions about legacy and what will you do? What will you do now? I do want to get to the Otto scene, and we can from here we can go into themes, all the big reveals. But I did not want to leave this Otto scene off the table, because this is really all we had with Otto tonight, and it's very important. And I'm so happy to have Andres here for this one, because you and I think Alden, you're with us too. But Andres and I have always been big fans of Tywin Lannister, which doesn't mean we root for Tywin. It just means we understand the character. There's things to learn. There's things not to be. There's things to analyze. Alden, you've had some great notes of Tywin in the past too. But Otto, for me, hit a bit of the Tywin note tonight that we've always, he's like the Tywin of the series. It's been played differently. He's kind of a shit dad, but in this moment, he does care about you. I care about our name. I care about our dynasty. I care about our place. I'm kind of right, and you need to decide if you're a Hightower or not, which doesn't mean Alicent just keep in line with the family, but who are you going to be? It's hard truths. And he's telling the truth, which I always said, as brutal as this land is, Tywin does things right, not good. He's not someone I want to send a Christmas card to or a name day card to, but for the rules in this world, he wins until he loses. And that has to do with a lot of things that we can talk about in other shows. But anyways, I want to pitch it to you guys. I'll start with you, Andres. We're off in Team Tywin with some asterisks. What do you think about Otto in this moment here and the truths he was laying down?
I love it. I mean, obviously, this is a moment where he is speaking to his daughter and trying to get her to realize, like, at the end of the day, you are a Hightower. There's nothing you can do to change that. And your children are your children, regardless of your connection to Rhaenyra or if your belief in Rhaenyra. So I like that moment. And I like the realization of that. And also, the idea of the Hightowers. We always hear about the Velaryons, but the Hightowers are also an extremely powerful, rich family of Old Town, which is considered to be the oldest place in all of Westeros, and so much tradition and culture there. So we see that there is a lot of pride when it comes to the name Hightower. So Alicent trying to hug that and connect it that a little bit more instead of just kind of peeling back to the shadows is something that's so important for her and for her character. And obviously the moment with her and Criston Cole is even more important. But that was a great moment for her to realize, like, all right, I'm going to have to do something if I'm going to survive this game.
Well said. Yeah, we light the way indeed. Either you prepare Aegon to rule or you cleave to Rhaenyra and pray for her mercy. But this is your choice. He's leaving. This is almost Luke telling Rey, this is your fight now. Touch everything. This is your fight. And he walks away, Alden. Your thoughts of good old Otto. Fired, looking to go get new work on LinkedIn.
Honestly, yeah, brushing up that resume while on horseback. Yeah, the entire idea that you just spoke to, Andres, of who are you really? Because I look at you, you're my kid, and I see my kid. I see Hightower. This is the last ditch effort, and as in the post show behind the episode, Rhys Ifans beautifully saying this world doesn't have the words that a father needs to say in this moment. They doesn't have the I love you that is somewhere in there. But he's speaking in this Game of Thronesian ice and fire way of like, this is all the love I can show you. And it's the love that we talk about with Tywin to tie it in with that character, the great Ned versus Tywin. One prepared them for the world and one loved them. And there was a middle to be had there. This is Otto trying to have love, but God desperately trying to lean into that side of like, I need to prepare you because much like people have done with Daemon, Viserys makes that connection for Alicent and for us. Those two have the blood of the dragon. And we'll get into his thoughts on his own legacy in a little bit and how he differs. But if those two have the blood of the dragon and Daemon keeps leaning into what we say he is, if we say Rhaenyra will do this, we'll put your children to the sword, you have to beg for mercy and all that stuff. He's laying out a lot of claims about a young woman that he's known since she was a baby. And it's like, because you're saying those things, are you going to force her to become those things? And those are the kinds of questions that I love that the show answers or asks and kind of answers.
And one of the things for me, again, in Otto walking away, I don't know how you guys feel about this or connect with it. He walks away, and I think it really does put this choice to Alicent. And everything that Alicent does here, the episode moves so well. I see so much through her eyes, including holding another crying baby, and getting this truth that she was, lied to or misled, however you want to see it, from Rhaenyra. And then the WrestleMania entrance, walking in with the green dress and calling the banners. Essentially, it all comes from her. It's not like Otto said, "All right, cool, I'm leaving. I got fired. I'm going to go get a job, weekend manager at Best Buy. Here's what I think you should do." He's just saying, here's where you got to find yourself. Here's where you are. You have to make the choice. And Alicent does make the choice. So in a way, this is one of those shows where it's, I don't know. I'm rooting for everyone. I'm rooting for everyone just eventually have some lemon cakes and get along. But Andres, your thoughts there and some of the stuff before we move on to Viserys.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we see that in the wedding, and we see how Alicent speaks to her uncle and how her uncle says, "We got your back." And I like that scene because it shows that, hey, whatever you decide to do, just so you know, like, Old Town's behind you and Old Town's gangster. So, we got the hookups there. So I love that she kind of listened to that and was like, all right, I have some safety with my decision making when it comes to my own family and when it comes to Old Town. So yeah, Alicent rising up needed to be done, especially throughout the past episodes, and even especially last episode when we saw her basically just be used by Viserys. So I think this was important for her character, and I'm excited to see what Olivia Cook's going to do with the character as well.
Yes.
Yeah, she walks in, has all the attention. Mind you, there's been so many scenes, the first 4 episodes, where she was going to say something. She did say something, and everyone kind of said, especially for Viserys, go hold the babies. She walked in with some purpose, Alden.
Yeah, walked in with purpose, and like you said there, Andres, used by Viserys, also used by Rhaenyra. She's coming off of realizing, sort of, to borrow a Clone Wars line, half-truths and hyperbole were at play, with this whole idea of, did Rhaenyra factually, based on what we the viewers know, lie about Daemon? Not technically. They did not consummate. They did not do the deed. But there was also all this talk about questioning my virtue as treason, Alicent. I would never, Alicent. It was just a showing some drinks, Alicent. You were telling a different lie, both in words and by omission at the same time. And that's a crushing betrayal. I got this other baby. My husband is continuing to decompose, which, my goodness, the makeup jobs on Paddy Considine for later. And we could talk about that at the end, but I am so sad. I feel like he's my dad. I'm like heartbroken. But yeah, like for her to really show up and say, here I am, is a triumph, a personal triumph, but also almost a societal tragedy, because Otto, let that decision to her, but he put his chips down and hoped that his years of preparing this child would pay off, and in a roundabout way they did. And for Old Town to do that, it shows like how sometimes some people just need to feel supported. And if anyone had shown anyone in that room support at other times, maybe he wouldn't be here. Maybe Larys Strong wouldn't be the way that he is if he was valued, but no, he was treated just like this guy with a disability and tossed aside. And so, like you said, you're rooting for everyone. I'm rooting against the pot stirrers. I hate Larys. I hate Joffrey, Knight of the Kisses. I hate all these things.
I love it. I love that there. We got some things to get to next. We got Sir Criston's offer to Rhaenyra. We got King Viserys. We got these big themes. We can start diving in here, guys. Go where you want to go here in a bit, Alden. I'll pitch it to you in a second. But death, duty, legacy, and the soiling of your legacy. This big question of, what do you want to do? What will you become? What will the history books say about you? An outsider among the natives, the Clubfoot, talking about that plant surviving to Alicent and lost in this wilderness. It reminded me a lot of Sansa Stark alone in King's Landing, and you have to face those hard truths. And the question of, hey, what do you prefer, roast duck or goose? And if this society let you choose what you want to eat for dinner, things might be a little better. Going to what you're talking about, Alden. Sometimes I watch these episodes and go, this is a lesson about a restrictive society stuck in traditions that destroys a lot of the things that could be a lot better. But anyways, a lot of big things there. Alden, where you want to go next?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that stuff about the sullying of the legacy. That was something I was really fixated on. The sullying of the White Cloak, perhaps the bloodying of the White Cloak. If you ask some of the more scandalous people there at the wedding, the idea that Criston, being sort of the apex of that in the episode, the apotheosis of just horrible decision making and guilt and terror, the way that he's mortified by a truth that he would then have to carry, doesn't carry it for long, but still the way that, at least not alone, but the way that those things weigh on you, the way that what happened weighs on Rhaenyra, the way that what continues to happen seems to not really weigh on Daemon. Everyone reconciling with the fact that whatever their role is has been corrupted. Whatever their station is being corrupted. Even Corlys, who is so proud of like, what a big win today, right, babe? And then Rhaenys being like, dude, this is not some Velaryon win. This is not a straight up, I'm over it. You're not over it. And that station of like, we're the in-laws, we're about to have kingly grandchildren, like even that is corrupted. So it's everybody sort of realizing like these on paper roles, king consort, king's guard, princess, we've screwed them all. Only Lionel Strong really is having a good time at his job. Only he is good at it. He has a strong son. He has a smart son. Gives his strong son the nod.
Yeah,
picks him. Go scoop up that princess. Get her out of there. Like, it's just,
actually did like that.
Yeah, it's a great little beat. I summon a strong boy. Go.
Yeah.
Live up to your name.
Honestly.
Live it or die. Yeah, no, yeah, great stuff there, Andres. This idea of of these titles, yeah, all of it there. The Criston stuff. This is a character I like, right? This is a character again. This is why I hesitate sometimes to say I'm rooting for a character that he just goes and absolutely does the most man thing he can, which is he can't handle it and he cracks it. He chooses violence and chooses chaos. So much stuff going on there. But Andres, your thought of Criston Rhaenyra has offered a let's just go back to the high country in Naboo kind of moment. What do you think?
It's insane how the show talks a lot about power and about what is power and what is leadership, and how Criston Cole this whole time has seemed to be a guy who has a good head on his shoulders, a good man, an honorable man, and suddenly he breaks, he cracks because of this relationship that he has with Rhaenyra, and because he doesn't want to be the side chick. He wants to be the main husband, and he wants her to run away with him, and he thinks that this is going to happen, which to me was even the most bizarre thing in this entire episode, because I'm like, bro, no, who would say yes to that? That's insane. But the idea of that, and then obviously at the end with him snapping in a way that seems almost uncontrollable, like he really does have this dark side inside of him, but it's this way of expressing himself that is that is clearly too far and too out there, something that maybe even Daemon was like, bro, what are you doing? Like, this is Criston Cole showing that he has this inside of him, as far as when he's giving a powerful secret, he can't handle it. When he's given a response that he didn't want it, he can't handle it, versus anyone else in Game of Thrones history that we can talk about and how they handle power. I thought a lot about this episode, especially when you talked about with Tywin, because Tywin, there's something about Tywin who was always in command, but he never had to punch someone, or he never had to like scream and berate people. He always knew that he was in power. And that's the difference between Viserys and then Cole. And obviously now we get to Rhaenyra and Daemon. But I thought that showed a lot of weakness inside of Criston Cole. Yeah.
He has incapable of picking his spot. I mean, you bring up Tywin, like Tywin's one big implied moment of violence is his actions at Blackwater, production reasons, but we don't see it. We just see the aftermath. Other than that, it's all implied power, all conversational power. Here we see somebody that can't play that game. Like you're saying, Andres, he's incapable. Even Daemon, the resident hothead, is like, I'll save this Royce fight for another day. I'll save it for when I show up and claim this. I'll deal with you in about a month. But the whole idea of Cole pleading for the quick death and then almost being denied it, like it's like when he'd almost, my interpretation was he accepted his death as he was speaking to Alicent, and then through kindness she almost robbed him of it. And so then it's like, well, I have to. Oh, I thought you were going to send me to the, like a Kingsguard would, like an Oathbreaker would. And now you're.
I thought he was going to get this hat. I thought he'd ask for this hat. It's a good hat.
See, that would have been the nice, clever. Like you could have gone up there, but nope. People are not great decision makers here. But yeah, and then just leaving it up to us, right? The ambiguity of what broke it out. You could create any theory you want. It's Daemon with that kind of aggressive neck grab, and chaos. Did this Joffrey guy lunge to help Rhaenyra, and it seemed like he was lunging at her, and that was Criston's snapping point? You can come up with 10, 15 of those, but it's the fact that it was just one more. It was Rhaenyra's rejection, then Alicent robbing him of what he expected, and then that third Joffrey was it just happened to be you, man. It was whoever that next one would have been, right? Like, there's no personal thing with Joffrey. Joffrey thought that they had an accord. It seemed like.
Yeah, I had one of those moments where I was like, this is very well and reasoned.
It was passive aggressive and snooty for sure.
Snooty. Yeah,
it was definitely an emotional and like kind of intellectual dunk. Like, don't think I don't know. But anyway, it's cool. That's my weapon. But yeah, it was just a bad night.
A lot going on there, and a lot from Criston. I love this thing of this pleading, we will be nameless and free, which does sound great, but her answer of I am the crown, I am the Senate, no, I am the crown, or will be, and she won't turn from her duty, won't turn away from her legacy, and in a way he already has, and he can't handle that. That's the part that he can't handle. Yeah, brutal. Well shot. We can break down the wedding or talk about the wedding whenever we want here. But that was one of the things I loved, because I was like, what the hell's Daemon going to do? And then, Viserys, who always gets upset anytime Daemon does something crazy, Viserys acts. And I thought, and then to have that faint left to go to this other action, I thought it was played out well.
And whatever happened, we're on Patty Considine's facial expression. That's when the scream hits. So I've rewatched that like 3 different times, and it really is just like, fill this in as if you were a player. It makes us part of court at that moment, part of the wedding guests. You could pick a table where you're sitting because you didn't get a full view, and that's the crazy element of it. And to tie in what you said there just then about Rhaenyra, like, her rejection of him is as kind as it could have been. Perhaps it could have been worded better, but she's 18, she's a kid. Like, but it's the whole idea of, we are with her, and we know that when she says the crown, she's also saying, my dad is destroying tradition because he believes in me. It's also, I'm Viserys's daughter. And then thirdly, it is also what we know that only she and Viserys know, which is, I could very well be the one to save the world. And I cannot walk away from that. That lingers over everything in this show now. It lingers over everything in Game of Thrones now. Aegon's, which they brought up again in the last one after the sex scandal, she got to actually read the prophecy that time. So now it's even fresher and more defined in her mind. She knows about the prince or princess that was promised, and she's on that boat like, dude, love's great, and I think you're hot, but it's me versus actual death, maybe. So I have to defend this country. But she can't say that.
And yeah, she can't say that. There's something to be said about gentlemen. When the lady rejects your plea, process it. It's on you to process it. And Criston did not process it. A lot of stuff there. We can go to Viserys. Let's see if any final thoughts on Criston, Andres.
Well, do we want to, just before we move off of Criston, if either of you wanted to address the attempted suicide before we move entirely off of him? I thought that that was an interesting beat of Sir, all she says is Sir Criston, and he stops, and it sort of leaves it for the audience. But that moment of, it's almost Alicent showing a kindness, but also the most Otto Hightower move she's made so far. I've now stopped you from I've now given you mercy twice in a 24-hour period, essentially. And now you're a Knight of the Green, baby. Like, I'm going to drag you back from this mental breakdown, and you should be shamed. You should be decloaked. You should be all of these things. But I stopped you here in the Godswood. It's just me and you, your queen. And you broke your vows a little bit, but I'm going to be equally unconventional in showing you kindness. And it's like, now kind Alicent, who was, your grace, I brought you a book 6 years ago, is now, let me stop your suicide, but not because I want you to not do it. And that was a chilling thing to see, for sure.
Yeah. I loved it. Great final sequence there, Andres. Yeah, your thoughts on Alicent's big move there?
Yeah, I mean, it's more tools in the tool bag for her to have in the future when it comes to the pretty much predestined conflict that is to come between Aegon and Rhaenyra. Essentially, Otto set it up this episode by telling her that. So I feel like that was a key moment. She knows what Criston Cole can be inside a battle or a war, or even just a master of information that he already has. So that's a very important factor for sure.
And an emotional blow too. Not only are you knight, not only are you King's Guard and all of these practical things, but a player on my team that was such an intimate, literally intimate player on hers is just an added bonus. Yeah.
Good move. Collecting tools, like Andres said, adding it to the belt. Loved it. Loved the ending. And it's one of those things where, yes, I've read Fire and Blood, but sometimes I'm like, oh, wait, what does he do? Let me just let the show tell me. And I just sat back and really took in that moment there. Death, duty, legacy. To me, you kind of say death kind of forces thoughts about duty, which supposedly confirms your legacy. A lot going on with Viserys here, literally asking, what will they say of me? And he wonders if he would have been a different man if he had faced a great crucible. I love that conversation. And also this through line here, and Alden, I know it's something that you were interested in, of Viserys not asking for the true help he needs, not getting what he really needs, not accepting, and also just not getting the treatment. There's this moment here where you have Maester Orwell who's like, hey, I cooked up something special to actually help him. And you got the other Maester going, no, we're good with the leeches here. He's not getting what he needs as he contemplates his legacy.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see. Him and Corlys have not been on good terms since before the battle in the Stepstones. It's been years, and even Corlys is like, "Do you need a chair?" And he says, "No." And then, like 5 minutes later, "Do you need a chair, man?
Yeah,
please sit." Still won't do it. People are pushing away what they need. You know, Alicent and Rhaenyra being chief examples, they're pushing away any type of reconciliation or honest moment that they need. Viserys is pushing away the fact that he actually does need medical attention, the fact that he actually does need care. He pushed away Otto, which maybe he did need that honesty, but Otto also pushed away his own daughter and his friend. It's a very delicate balancing act of writing, of seeing a bunch of people all in denial of different things. But how does it all work? And I thought that chair stuff, and even denying to his own cousin and saying like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "I'm great. Like I'm fine. I'm awesome. Leave my gloves on, please." Like just like it's pride.
Don't touch me.
Yeah, pride, hubris, fear. If by acknowledging the chair, then my fears about who I would be would come true. And what I think I need is a strong image, but that's not what you need, man. That's what you want. And those are different things.
Yeah, and Andres kicking it to you here, but just the idea that he has this thought of like, man, if I had won a war or conquered or all those kind of things, I didn't lose one, but I didn't win one, I would have been different. And I keep thinking, well, you're facing a crucible right now. If you were more honest, if you sat down or whatever, I don't know. I don't have a specific. I think there's a specific answer in it there, but a lot of interesting stuff, Andres, with Viserys in this episode.
This was, to me, the toughest Viserys episode. By toughest, I mean like this was his worst look probably in the entire series so far. Everyone has kind of shown, everyone has kind of talked about how Viserys is like, oh, he's weak. Look how weak he is. Look how weak. But this one really showed you like, man, this guy is struggling, like emotionally, mentally, like a struggle throughout the entire, like physically, obviously. And we see that there's cards and moments that fall into place. The Driftmark, traveling to Driftmark. Even Corlys was like, why did he come to Driftmark? He looks like crap. Like, you just could have told me and he would have stayed there and that would have been fine for me. And then Alicent coming in and Harwin being like, oh, he's going to get mad. He didn't get mad. Daemon coming in and basically being like, you're not mad at me, bro. Like, you're not going to do anything. Give me a chair. And
after the second banishment.
Yeah. And everyone running over Viserys and him never really standing up for himself or standing up for what he wants to accomplish. And it's just a difficult position where he wants to please so many people, but he can't also be like as mean as he wants to be because he feels like that would be too extreme. It was just like tough for Viserys, like a really bad look in every way this week that really kind of reiterated the fact that as much as you want to be kind, there is a need for a quiet strength and a quiet moment of realizing who you are and not trying to please as many people as you want.
Yeah, something about you're so concerned about your legacy that you forget to be who you are, and that's what you might be remembered for. Yeah, great stuff there. And I was going to ask quite Alden. I know you have a thought there, but my thought was, did Viserys go to Driftmark in the Hall of Nine? Did he do it from a position of power? We know this is an arrangement that makes sense. Did he beg? Was this what he wanted? Is this what he needed? All those kind of things. Alden, your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing to think about. Is Viserys like trying to is he trying to show humility and accidentally showing hubris? Like, I wronged this guy years ago, I will go in person. Well, that's a nice move for a king to do. However, is it the right move for you? You're so busy trying to be Jaehaerys, so busy trying to be this fixer, so busy trying to be this father that you like you said, Ken, that you can't be. Well, you know, you can't put us together and us not bring up Star Wars, but like the Yoda bonking Luke with the little cane, like in front of your nose, like that whole thing, like it was right here. And you know, like you know, newly minted Hand of the King Strong says, like, well, people that go through trials and tribulations kind of wish they didn't. So perhaps it's like best that you're like this, and maybe you could just be you. But there's a romanticizing that Viserys has throughout of history. His big Lego set, his model kits, his little dragon toys that he gets from his young wife, all of this. Even Daemon seems to be a student of history as well, so you know that was probably a childhood passion of theirs. He wants to be counted amongst the songs, and he wishes that he could be that way. And with his head in the clouds, it's almost a fall from grace that's not coming from pride or a bullish, brutal place like Robert Baratheon later on, or any of the other kings that we've seen. He's very unique in the fact that he almost wishes that he could be a storybook king. Viserys wishes that he could be a Tolkien king in a way, and it's really sad to see him not be able to do it in this world, because that's this world. And to tie it in with the Maesters, this last point just about this, it's like you can see the generations battling and how people pay for that. Young doctors like, well, we could try this. Old doctors like, we don't need to. And it's like, he was more present. Maybe he could speak up for himself.
There's a big theme of that too. And I think they did touch upon it. I think Claire Kilner touched upon it too, but at the wedding where you have the adults that have arranged everything, all for legacy and duty and maneuvering, can only watch helplessly from the table. All of them, including Lord Strong. He's got, smartly sends his son in, but Viserys, Corlys, Rhaenys, they're all watching. They can't go help. And it's the generation behind him that's out there creating that chaos that Andres was talking about. I thought it was fascinating. But I also like that it ties a little bit to Corlys in that, it's a heartbreaking scene that, Laenor can't be what he wants to be in this world, a gay man in love with Joffrey. And Corlys says that he'll grow out of it kind of idea. And it's just that they so are blind to what's coming up behind him that they're just causing more of these problems there.
And so he can't even grieve. And that, as Condell puts it, it's a shotgun wedding, like what should have been the 7-day celebration happens before the blood is mopped. Her hair is not even fixed. It is not even cleaned. People are crying. Viserys' nosebleed has not even been addressed. And they do it right there. And it once again, adding to this Viserys conversation of when he does put his foot down, it's ill-placed. The time to be the firm king was not, we'll marry them right now. Like, dude, there was a time to be on it. This is not it. Could you let everybody breathe? And not letting the younger generation breathe is, it's classic Game of Thrones at this point.
Yeah, it is a lot about the generations. Andres, any thoughts there? Any thoughts on Viserys? We're gonna say goodbye to you in about 5 minutes here on the show. Any big thoughts that you have about this episode you want to share?
I mean, to me, Laenor is a big factor as well. I feel like the relationship between Laenor and Rhaenyra could have possibly maybe worked in a weird, funky way. But now that he lost Joffrey, it's just such a big hit. It really was, at least how the show built it up, the love of his life. So it's that moment of like, I'm not going to be here mentally. Like, I'm checked out. Like, this is just not for me. I don't want to be in this relationship. I never wanted to, but at least I had Joffrey with me. And now it's like, now what's the purpose of this entire thing if I don't get to live and I just have to suffer through a relationship that I've never wanted to be in the first place? So I feel like that's very important for his character and obviously for House Velaryon, and how Corlys is just not seeing that at all. It's just another key thing when it comes to the House Velaryon future.
Yeah, absolutely. We did see a little bit of sea smoke though, right?
We did see sea smoke.
And someone else.
And I still screamed. Melees? I think it was Melees, right?
Got it.
Now I'm always going to think of you when I see that dragon, Andres.
Yeah, they even got a sea smoke emoji for you on Twitter, Andres. It's great. I think of you whenever I see it.
I've used sea smoke emoji so many times already.
It's sad though, you're right. Like, and especially because they give us an unusual amount of kindness, because Rhaenyra is such a sweetheart to Laenor and introduces the food thing and is trying to tell him, look, you're my cousin. I'm not judging you for that. I love you, man. It's all good. We can have this deal. It's sort of the Margaery Renly proposition, but even nicer than that, because Margaery did it, for gain. Rhaenyra is actually being kind to her cousin there, and to see it destroyed a mere 40 minutes later, it's just heartbreak.
Yeah, no, and going back to even some of the Rainy stuff of her just, challenging Corlys, to what end? All these things, all these plans, all this talk of dynasty, to what end? Wealth, power, pride. He's just kind of clueless to his son's truth and clueless to the truth of the world, and that's a lot of what's going on. And I think this show deals with that, not just specifically in discussions about the patriarchy or masculinity and how to process a lot of the stuff, but just like now this episode to me focused a lot about that generational stuff, which is big in Star Wars. We all three love discussing that, the generational switch and change in Star Wars. But Otto saying, this is your fight now. Viserys concerned about it, so obsessed, nostalgic. You're right. He wants to be a minifig and that old Valyria Lego set. He's so worried about it when he really is a king of peace that continued the great realm, and he can't live with that. And so therefore soils his own legacy and is in the process of that there. Andres, we are about to say goodbye to you here tonight because you got wonderful other things to do. I did want to give you a chance. Alden and I are going to talk about here in a bit, but we are getting a big cast switch. I think there's like 11 or so parts that are going to be aged up here, but Rhaenyra and Alicent are at the center of it. I wanted to give you a second to talk about Emily Carey, what they did with Alicent, and what Millie Alcock did with Rhaenyra. Your thoughts there?
It's going to be so tough to see them go, and I'm sure a lot of people are probably going to be hesitant to click in right away, but I do feel like it's appropriate. And I know there's going to be this conversation around it because it always happens, but it's appropriate to have the change of actors, to have the age up, to have two actresses like Olivia Cooke and Emma D'Arcy or D'Arcy, D'Arcy come in to take their roles. And I also want to give a shout out to the actors that are going to play Laenor and Laena as well. Nana Blondell is playing an older Laena, and John McMillian, I think is his name, is playing an aged up Laenor, which is another important age up that is happening in this show. So
I love it.
I think it's going to take a lot of people out of it, but I think it's going to work. So.
Yeah, you're gonna, and we are not here. We here this channel. We don't compare House of the Dragon to Rings of Power. Life is not always competition. I'm a big sports guy. Ace has got his Phoenix Suns hat on. We like competition. We like what it does, but the gamifying of it in the nerd punditry world is something I've just grown tired of. But you're gonna see that. You're gonna see who's better, who's this and that, and that's just gonna be. Hopefully, we can move past that. I'm very much excited to see what those performers do because we're gonna talk about it at the end. But I love what they brought to these two characters, moving them off the page. And yes, there's so many other wonderful actors we're about to see in some of the other roles as well. And I think House Velaryon being so key is good at that. Great points, Ace. We're going to let you go because you got some work to do as well. Tell them what you're going to be working on, where they can find your other stuff before you head on out.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Squad Leader Ace, and you can find my channel at First Cut, doing videos of House of the Dragon there. Also make sure you follow me on TikTok at First Cut as well. I'm doing TikTok shorts for House of the Dragon there. So yeah,
that's great. So I'll do C-Smoke one. And I don't know if you're gonna have any specific spot to talk Star Wars with Andor, but I think you all with Andor coming out, give Andres any place he's got his opinion on Star Wars, give him a listen to. I think he's gonna be an important voice during the conversation on Andor. So I don't know if you got those plans yet. Do a TikTok on Andor, Ace.
I've done a TikTok on Andor already, and it's got no views.
Do it again in Spanish.
Do it again. No, seriously, I'm looking forward to your thoughts on that show. Andres, we're going to let you go because you got some work to do. So thank you, sir. We'll see you soon. All right. He's out here, and we are going to continue our discussion here. Alden, a lot to talk about in this episode, including getting into the wedding itself and how does it rank with other Game of Thrones weddings? What do you think?
It's unique, right? They talked about how they knew that they had our expectations. There's going to be a lot of Game of Thrones wedding first timers, and for those people, well, I'm glad you started with this one. You have a nice ramp up to the nice ramp up to the old Robin Cat situation. But yeah, this whole wedding felt like a powder keg waiting to explode. Everybody's angles, everybody's glances. When Joffrey first notices Criston Cole, when Daemon first checks out Laena, when all of these little things that are elements that future storylines reaching their peak, storylines transitioning, all done with the utmost subtlety. Dancing never stops. small beats, like we joked about Viserys and his food. Viserys and his food, which just gets the cutting gets more aggressive when he sees Daemon go onto the dance floor. Like,
what he's not even like hitting the chicken.
It's just plate. He's getting all plate, man.
All plate.
It's hard to watch. But this energy was the blocking. Me and my buddy Nikki and a group chat that I'm in on Twitter. Blocking. The blocking is crazy. What you see, what you don't. How that final thing is executed. Claire Kilner quickly becoming a star, and for different reasons than like Miguel Sapochnik became a star, like for this world. Her attention to detail, the precision really is one of the words about, the timing, the way that everything pauses. Little things like Alicent coming in and Viserys forgetting where he was in the speech. Small little beats like that you could argue, like, if you took it out, it wouldn't hurt it, but to have it there just tells you so much about the dynamics.
Yeah, no, I love what you're saying about that. And again, when we say wedding, we're saying generally, we know it's supposed to be a 7-day celebration. This was a rehearsal dinner, almost reception, bruncheon, and it leads to the shotgun wedding. But for our purposes here, we'll call this a wedding. I don't want to sound hyperbolic, but this was like on par with, for me, and this is a personal opinion, for me, with watching some of the great big fight scenes now, or fight battles, some of the Sapochnik ones. I'm not directly comparing it to the Battle of Bastards, Hard Home or anything, but I go to Hard Home, which was 40 minutes or so of this sequence in which you learn so much about the characters, you learn so much about the story, but it's done in beats. This sequence is going to be one I'm going to watch again and again and again. From the moment you go in, the set decoration, everything about it, the beats, the WrestleMania entrances, the Velaryons walking in like bosses with their own theme music, Alicent with the green dress, the beats, the conversation, everything about it. I really was in love with the sequence, man. There's so much stuff there.
Yeah, everything. All the great houses that are represented, even the comedy with Jason Lannister continuing to be an annoyance, and the fact that you get like father and daughter both like this, like that. It's great to see that continue, because it's just good audience training or subverting what the audience thinks, because that puts us in a tone. It makes us think this is going to be a politicking scene. We don't, not that in the other weddings we expected what happened, but we really are thinking like, well, the worst of this has finished, and Daemon's here, and we'll just keep our eye on him. We weren't used to the X Factors being who the X Factors were. We'd never met Joffrey before. We'd never seen this side of Criston before. In fact, we'd seen only dedication from Criston thus far. Like, yes, he broke his vows, but at the same time, he also ended up in love. So it's not like he had broken his vows in a violent way. So it really did play with like some real horror. And it was fascinating. And it continued to show some of the themes we've talked about all coming to a head at the same time. What you brought up from the inside the episode, older generation sits at the table while a younger generation fights it out. Daemon, who's sort of the bridge in between the generations, piecing out, disappearing and not getting uncharacteristically not involved in chaos. He's like, that's funny, I'm leaving.
He is a Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Wild card, just you can't predict what he's gonna do.
You can't. He's gone. Who knows where he went? Maybe he's in Flea Bottom. I don't know. Laughing it up. But every single theme sort of coming together in one scene is always impressive to me. And everything. I mean, the sullying of the legacy that we talked about up top is all here. And to see the self-fulfilling prophecies that we keep talking about with Daemon, will it happen with Rhaenyra? Will it happen with Alicent? Happens with Criston. You were so concerned about being this failure, telling Rhaenyra, this is all I effing have, which was a brief outburst. That was the most we'd have from him at that point. Ties in beautifully with the fact that for those days, however long they were at sea, it was like, maybe I am a failure. Maybe I am a monster. Maybe it all builds and builds and builds. And some people can't function that way. And and we see how pride affects them all. And Viserys too, bleeding on his food.
Bleeding. Now, believe me, I've been there eating tacos too fast. But pride's a big theme in this episode. And Rhaenys is one that kind of brought that up to Corlys. But pride, and when you ask yourself or get propose the question of what will you become, and pride can really help soil that legacy. It's there. I think some of the stuff we're talking about with Viserys, definitely Criston Cole. Daemon as well, right? I love your note there about Laena coming in and just kind of having her own desires, having her own game plan, whatever you want to say. We'll see. It's going to be important going forward, but her just kind of like seeing Daemon as Daemon kind of wants to be seen. I like that idea too that you brought forth.
Yeah, he's a reactionary creature. Like if he's exactly whatever you put in is what you get out. When Mysaria worshipped him as this prince that would come down to her level, it was all great. Once he was challenged at all, that fell apart. And that's a pattern in all of his relationships. And it's like once you meet his wife, Lady Royce, she is this badass and she's this renowned rider and hunter and is unusual in her way. And like you would think like, oh, like isn't this the exact kind of woman that Daemon would want to be with based on what we know of him? But it's because she doesn't feed into the cult of personality. And that's what he needs. He's entirely a reactionary creature. And so is his brother. Daemon and Viserys are two sides of the same coin. They have the same interests and the same flaws. It's just one is the firebrand, has the blood of the dragon, admitted by Viserys. And Viserys is, I don't know, he's in the wrong time. I mean, you even see with what he says to Corlys, like, and their children, regardless of gender, will be the king or queen. That's bold. That's progressive for the time. And we know that by Thrones, that is still far from the case. He's a man who wants to be in the past, probably should be in the future, and can't live here.
Love that take on it. Love that take on it. Because I was going to ask us the question: what will he be remembered as? We, might have the benefit of knowing some of the histories in this world, but just going on what the show has presented us so far, I'm like, I kind of like, good old Hand of the King, Lord Strong there saying like, hey, maybe you should take stock of what you have done. It's peaceful. Like you've done, that's not a bad thing to be remembered for. Jaehaerys. He's remembered for this. He's not Maegor the Cruel. He brought peace to the land and kept it, and you kept that. And there's Viserys just kind of like, yes, but am I a great man? Like it's tough. It's tough to watch because I do like this guy, and I love Paddy Considine's performance as him.
He's amazing.
He is kind. He's just in the wrong position.
He's so warm, and he has, and it's one of those things that I love it when visual questions are raised or things are conveyed visually. That's something that Star Wars does so beautifully. And to see this man who's literally rotting, of course he's asking these questions. Of course he is, because it's getting worse. And Otto hints as much to Alicent. However much Alicent actually knows about the condition is vague. We don't know. She knows something. And if she didn't, he faints in the courtyard, and she sees that. And with a look of disdain on her face because he lied. He didn't tell her about the
and to me, there's kind of the tea, but also it's kind of the sign from the baseball coach. Hey, it's time. You might need to steal second here. This is the sign. He's falling down. Your father's right. He might die soon.
Yeah, and Otto saying months, years, doesn't matter. He at least gets another decade, but and we'll end on that next time clip. But God, I hinted at already. Paddy in the older age disease makeup is just it's like seeing a parent in pain. It's hard to watch. And there's that trailer for the rest of the season where he has the gold phantom mask, thus implying that his face is gone. Not
going good here, and the throne taking him out piece by piece by piece. A lot of stuff at play here. As we discussed kind of the episode, the big themes, feel free to kind of go where you want to go to. And one of my final big thoughts, just going back to what I think, again, is the center of this episode. This is an Alicent episode for me. Absolutely. And no coincidence. It is titled, We Light the Way, the words of House Hightower. And it really sets things up going forward. She is not going to be just sitting back. We got a big time jump ahead of us. We got a lot of kids growing up fast. Rhaenyra with child as well. We know a lot of that's coming, but I just think this really, really did everything that it needed to do to get Alicent over as a power player, and not just other people's pieces. She's in control as best she can going forward.
I entirely agree, and I think that that's the power of this adaptation versus the unreliable narrator, which again, not a comparison. It's supposed to be that in Fire and Blood, but it's if we're going to do this and we're going to do faction-based storytelling and we have time to build it, we need to make the head of the Greens entirely sympathetic. This is not a one-to-one comparison, what I'm about to say, obviously, but we need to make her Magneto. She has to be understandable. on an intimate level, because if she's not, it's going to be very easy for people to be like, F the greens, blacks, yeah. And you don't want that for your storytelling. You want to see her walk in there and feel a mixture of what I found, a mixture of pride. Yes, good for you. You're finally standing up. But then at the same time, do you have to stand up that way? Does that, and that's what you want. And conversely with Rhaenyra, Rhaenyra, I love you, girl. You did lie to her, and you have not sympathized with her position. And and there's communication breakdowns on both ends, which is, that's the drama that you want. So it is that, Alicent did light her own way, but where are you going? Evidently, war. Otto is that meme of heartbreaking. The worst person just made a great point. That's that's what he's done now several times.
Yeah. Really agree with that.
Yeah. So it's hard to argue with. I mean, he predicted, somewhere out there in the future, Arya Stark's like, this Otto Hightower. He said it.
Well, again, there's these hard truths, which the world of Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire is about. Facing this truth and asking yourself, who do you really want to be? So one of my big things is Jon Snow setting out to be a hero, and Mance Rayder going, oh, I get it. You want to be a hero, but what do you really want to do? And that's something that Jon has to answer time and time again, what you're really going to stand for. And this episode had some of those big themes at stake. And as far as Rhaenyra and Alicent, this is what you're supposed to be thinking. I think there's points for either side, and I'm sympathetic to both. I think a lot of it was the system. A lot of it was the society that separated them. We talked about that a lot. Otto, these hard truths are about, there is no middle ground. There's no middle ground. And I don't think he's saying that's fair. I don't think he has sympathy for the situation too much, but that's what Alicent has to come to terms with. There's no middle ground. Either I kill her or conquer her and put my son on that throne, do something to usurp her power, or I cleave to her and beg for mercy. And where are you going to fall down on that? It's a tough spot for Alicent. And I for one like her walking in that room, because again, final point on that, like you've pointed out a lot, Alden, so many times, Alicent has been talked over, talked down to, overlooked. Go take care of the babes in the room.
Used,
and now even by her friend. And we talked about last week, maybe some of that stuff with Rhaenyra and Alicent was the final breaking point, perhaps for each. When she walked in that room, and it's a little bit of play. This is the green dress is coming a little bit differently than you might be familiar with it. They're playing with that a little bit here, but this is the moment, right? This is the moment for her, and the banners have been called. And I, for one, really understood where she was coming from. I'm not necessarily saying I'm Alicent or Rhaenyra. I don't know what team I'm on. I might, again, just be on the Night's Watch. Let's go hang out up there. Let's go hang out up there. It's just easier.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see the way that, with the Alicent focus stuff, I just on a TV script level, I think that it does two very TV tropes things beautifully. Things that I think are a delicate balancing act. One is pretty simple. It's the let's stop and explain a symbol with the two strong brothers explaining what the green is. I thought that was as smoothly as you could have done that for people that aren't, that are coming in fresh. And then the other thing is a trope that, I resist a lot, and they got me and they won me, which is the, hey, we're on a network television show and we're talking about two different things. And we're not going to ever have the right words with Criston and Alicent of is this drama true? Yes, I confess. Wait, that's not what I was talking about. That could have easily made the characters, made you frustrated with them. That could have been the kind of writing that you see on certain CW superhero dramas where it's why didn't you just say what needed to be said? Why didn't you use your words? Why didn't you use a pronoun? Why didn't you use the word uncle? Why didn't you anything? And they earned it. They got it. Because when he confesses, Emily Carey gunning for that supporting actress Emmy, I think. What a final scene, 30 emotions all there at the same time. And Criston Cole too. I forget the gentleman's name. Fabian
Frankel, is that his name?
Fabian Frankel. Yeah, I keep wanting to say Fabian Martell, which is an RPG character or something I've been working on, but
it could be.
Yeah, honestly, it could be. No, I think you're right, Frankel. I mean, he really found new levels of depth, new levels of horror, rage. He yeah, everybody, and Millie Alcock too. I mean, if we're saying goodbye to these two young women, I hope we're not. I mean, I know we are in full,
Yeah.
but if at any point in season 2, it's like, let's show a good time between them, that would be welcomed.
Yeah, look, the one thing I'll say, and I get, unless you have any other big points on the themes or anything, Alden, we'd start looking at next week. Unless you do you have any themes?
No, I say let's go for it.
Okay, or did we just want to talk about how Jason Lannister is a douche?
I just hate him. I just really do. And he shot up to the least popular Lannister list. He really did. Because for a while it was like, who's the worst one? I don't know, maybe Uncle Kevin. He kind of sucks. But now Jason Lannister is. Tywin would hate Jason Lannister. He'd hate him.
Oh, yeah, absolutely not. No, looking ahead and looking at what's coming down the line here. Big things forthcoming. But as far as like even looking ahead, the one thing I was thinking about it a lot more tonight because is you got a little bit of those pangs of we're going to lose these not just these two, but as Andres pointed out, a lot of actors coming in here and switching. We're going to lose some good actors. It's just the way of it. But they're jumping around so much. There's a possibility that if they want to, and I know that some of the actors might have been addressing rumors of season 2, you could really easily jump back when you need to tell. So there's so much real estate on this story because of these time jumps, which I think they've handled the time jumps well. You always say they go to the meat. Like they're not like Viserys missing the meat when you cut it. They go right to it.
No.
So I have a lot of hope that we'll see some of these faces and hear some of these names again.
I hope so too. I think it's definitely the time. We are in a, the 2000s, 2010s non-linear sort of became the mood, and not that this is non-linear, but Star Wars didn't flash back until Force Awakens. The Rey stuff is the first time people embraced that. Season 6 of Game of Thrones, bringing in Robert Aramayo as young Ned and getting to see Lyanna when they were children. You saw the young Ned and then child Ned, and so playing with that, if you find that opportunity, whoever's writing these scripts, and we see these adult women at war, and then it's like, it would make this hurt a really nice memory, like something like that, of them reading in the Gods of Wood. Like it's that type of stuff that I would love to have. I would love to have that as an unannounced, like, it's them, like they're in now. They've been embraced. They've really won the hearts in the same way that all the young performers on Thrones did. I mean, their track record of casting from child to late teens. I think Millie's 19, like that has.
Yeah, I think Emily's 19. Millie's.
Oh yeah, Millie's like 22. Yeah. Emily, but still, it's wildly good.
All I know is Patty Considine's like a year older than me, and that makes me feel like my legacy is not secure. So,
well, maybe you and Patty can meet at one of his shows, the rock shows, and you guys talk about it.
He's a rock star as well. More things I haven't accomplished. Okay. What will they say of me, Alden? What will they say in the songs? No, great stuff. They're looking towards next week and beyond. Where are you at with that as we start to wrap up the show tonight?
As I've talked about, just terror.
Just terror.
I joked like the other day that seeing Harrison Ford cry was like seeing my dad cry. Like seeing Viserys not being able to move right is like really hurting me. I didn't expect that, mostly because it's Patty and he's so joyous. That it's hard to see him that way, and because Viserys is a rare, just decent person. Not every call's been great, but decent person, so that's terrifying. But then it's the hey, those babies of Rhaenyra's, they don't look right. Their hair is not white. Somewhere out there, Ned Stark, black of hair, like as Game of Thrones has taught us. Black. I'm gonna go confront her in the garden. That's a great plan. It's Game of Thrones. If you're fresh and this is your first Game of Thrones show, you're in for a little treat there. If you have original Game of Thrones knowledge, you see kids walking around that don't have that dominant Targaryen gene. That should raise some questions. Getting the flashes of Olivia and Emma Darcy at the small council table is exciting because Olivia Cook, like Emma Darcy, I'm less familiar with their work. They seem wonderful. But Olivia has that next big thing sort of energy to her in Hollywood. Like her performances have all been killer, award nominated. And it's just cool to see her sort of like stepping up now. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I can confirm at the coffee shops in Burbank. That's all we talk about. Olivia Cook.
As you should.
Next
As you should. And then I hope when she walks in, you all kneel.
Yeah, we do. Oh, I bend the knee to everyone who walks. Absolutely. No, absolutely. Think you're right. I think I was, going into this season, there was the big questions. We were wondering how they're going to, is it flashbacks, this, and then when the word kind of came out, when some people actually kind of watched the episodes, it's linear. I just kind of off air kind of had this to myself, like, I don't know if I like that. How's that going to work? I mean, I could imagine the many possible ways, but I was dubious. I was dubious. I really like the way it played out. I really like what we've got. I'm going to miss these performers again. I have hope they'll come back. I'm really excited to jump this forward 10 years and spend 5 episodes in this new world and beyond as we keep going with the show.
Harwin Strong's like, Viserys, you're stressing me out, man. I'm losing hair.
Yes.
My sons are stressing me out. Seeing the little, for the actors that are not changing, the costuming and hair and makeup changes are fun. Just on a filmmaking level, that's fun to see.
Lord Strong, it's like when you go back to your earliest MySpace. My MySpace is still active. You look at your profile picture, then you go to your Twitter picture. You're like, what happened? What happened? It was only 10 years.
It was it's any president at the beginning and end of the administration. It's like, what? Jesus, what happened? Do they suck your soul in that place? Like, and some people are like, yeah, they do. But no, it's really interesting. Is there anything else in the preview that I'm forgetting that excited you? I know we get some Laena and Daemon.
Yeah, we do that. Yeah, I'm very intrigued by this is very much a series about Alicent and Rhaenyra and their place in this world and how they try to find it. And but man, there's so much about the Rogue Prince that is just it's truly a wild card. Andres saying chaos really just about the episode, but about Daemon is so right. And again, even knowing some of the plots and having read Fire and Blood or just knowing the histories from going through wikis and stuff like that, I'm leaving it all at the door just to see what Matt Smith is going to do with this character's decisions and how he plays it. Right. I'm excited.
I would like to just throw out something from friend of the show, Charlie Ashby, that I forgot, and I want to mention it.
No Brits here.
No Brits. Hey, it's a sensitive time for them right now. We gotta throw Chuck a bone. The young performer playing teenage Aegon, who we see in the next week preview. Who, those of you playing at home, that little baby we saw in episode 3, who's going to be a problem. The conqueror babe, as he was called. Yeah. He's now a teenager. He's being played by Ty Tennant, David Tennant's adopted son, which means that, and David Tennant is married to Georgia Tennant, whose father, Peter Davison, was the 5th Doctor. So his grandfather is a doctor, his now father is a doctor, and his on-screen uncle is a doctor. Which Charlie was very excited about. It's David Tennant's biological son, but he adopted him. He's been there his whole life. And so he's going to go to work now with Matt Smith, the guy that took over for his dad and his grandpa.
Look, just getting that TARDIS and jump to the future, which is what we're going to be doing next week. I don't know if that's how the TARDIS works. It seems like it does. Okay.
You can do that.
Well, yeah. Sorry, Doctor Who fans. What do we call them? Whovillians?
Whovians. You were close. Whovillians are Dr. Seuss fans.
That's Whoville. True. Now, good note from, as you said, Chuck, throwing Chuck a bone, Charles Ashby. Love that there. All right, we are almost out of here tonight. A lot of fun breaking this down. We had a lot of fun looking at Rings of Power, episode 4, that review with Rachel Cushing. That discussion is up. Alden was traveling. But Alden, you're going to be back on. It's going to be you and me. We'll probably have to bring another person. Rachel's out next week, so we'll need a Lord of the Rings lore expert. You and I got Game of Thrones covered, and then soon I'll be out because I got some comedy shows coming, folks. I'll be at Flappers next Sunday. We'll see how we'll work that out. Then I'll be in New York City, October 6th and 7th. With Mark Ellis doing some comedy there, and then Seattle at the end of the month. So,
those places are close by.
They're close by.
New York and Seattle, those are close. Yeah, short trips.
If you want information on that, follow me at Ken Napzok. Go to my website, kennapzok.com. Thank you for listening to Casterly Talk on the podcast side. Don't forget, maybe you swung on over to the YouTube side to give us a subscription. To those who watch and see our faces, we really appreciate that. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell, and hit that bell. And Alden, where can they find you, including a wonderful interview with someone who I'd love to see direct the Game of Thrones episode. Mr. Ryan Johnson, you just had that as part of the Potathon 2022. Where can they find that interview in full and all the other things you do?
Yes, Potathon 2022 is behind us. It was a rousing success. Goal was 10 grand and we got over 16. Thank you,
Yeah.
everybody that watched, everybody that donated, everyone that participated and shared. It was a beautiful time with some great guests. Mine was Ryan Johnson. That is still available, of course, in the stream if you want to watch the whole show. It's also pieced out on Octa Radio, my Star Wars podcast. He happened very fortuitously to be episode 100 of Octa Radio. Ryan Johnson. So go check that out. And then I'm everywhere at that Alden Diaz. And scan the QR code too. I always forget to point it out, even though I'm usually next to it. That QR code brings you to links.
Yeah, and you could support the show right there as well. So we can keep Casterly Talk going strong. We have many more seasons to cover for Rings of Power and House of the Dragon. And there's that other show that Alden is really angling to cover here. It's a Lucasfilm show. It has some brownies, has some great wizards, a lot of stuff going on. So we'll see if you can get a groundswell support to cover that here. We'll work on that.
X amount of dollars for Willow. Yeah.
There it is. You know what? For that one, maybe we'll bring Chuck Ashby around. I love that you call him that. It's my favorite thing. All right, everybody. We're out of here. We'll see you next week on Casterly Talk.